Hello, everybody. My guest today is Deidre Paknad. She's the CEO and co-founder of Workboard, has decades of experience leading enterprise and startup teams, and is passionate about helping other leaders engage their teams in great achievement. She's founded and led several companies, has twice been recognized by the Smithsonian Institute for Innovation, and has 16 patents. Deidre, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What is Workboard? What do you do and how do you make money?
Workboard's a software company that helps other organizations align, measure, and achieve their strategic priorities more quickly, more effectively.
Okay, so you're selling these kind of to HR managers, internal team purposes.
Actually, not to HR managers, right? And if you think about an enterprise, whether that's a growth company or whether that's a huge enterprise like a Microsoft or IBM, the person with the strategic priorities is leading a business unit. Right? We need to grow this much. We need to enter these markets. We need to drive this top line growth and this bottom line margin and profit, right? And that's not the head of HR. That's the head of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's who we're trying to help drive acceleration for.
Interesting. Okay, very good. But all B2B SaaS.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And I want to put all this on a timeline and get more of your story. Before we do that though, give me a general sense here. I don't want to go on every customer cohort, but on average, what's a customer pay you per month for this, would you say?
Actually, we do annual contracts. So we sort of think about their ACV per customer is, and it's about $125K. We've got really large enterprise like a Sony, Samsung, Microsoft, right, Deutsche Telekom, and we've got a bunch of growth companies, a couple hundred people like Trendkite, Influitive, and others. So sort of in the middle of that zone is about $125K ACV.
That's great. And put all this on a timeline for us. When did you launch?
We actually launched a company about 4 years ago, and we haven't used a ton of money to get here, right? And so it was perfect the product for, I think of it as the individual contributors, right? The people who execute against those strategic priorities and make sure they loved it, they got power, they got value. And then stack on top of that, enable the managers, especially first-time, second-time managers who aren't really awesome at it, to connect the strategic priorities to the work their team's doing, and then elevate that to strategic priorities going up 7, 8, 9 layers in the organization. So we walked up for 2 years on product people love to use, and then dashboards and alignment executives really, really need to have. And they put those together, right? And so we kind of got to revenue generation in 2016, and we've been growing at a pretty healthy clip since 2016 in the revenue.
Okay. And so obviously there are 2 years there pre-revenue where you're obviously funding, development, code, et cetera. I guess you raised early on. How much have you raised to date?
Yeah, so we've raised about $12 million. I started the company from inside IBM and, which bought my last company. And
which company was that?
That company was PSS Systems. I was a turnaround CEO there, and I led it for 7 years. And
Deidre, turnarounds are fun. So you're a wartime CEO, huh?
You bet.
I love that.
Peel it back to the bone and do over, right?
That's not easy. Congratulations.
Actually, it was through 2 recessions. It's so not easy. Yeah. I started in 2003. The company raised $60 million and had nothing to go to market with.
Pre-revenue?
So pre-revenue.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It had, Anyway, and this is in 2003, right? The heart of Depression 1 or Recession 1. Gonna get up and over that. End up with an exit that was no down round, no recap. Got to value on that capital.
You were able to get everyone their money back out.
Yes, I was.
Wow, that's incredible. Did any flow down to common holders, or no? It didn't get that far down the cap table.
We got a little down. We raised one more round before exit, and we had pretty good run.
Well, that's impressive.
Thank you. A much bigger run inside IBM. Grew the same business a whole lot more, like 10x more. But in the running of that business, I encountered this problem we solve in deep pain, right? Which when I left to start this company, I was able to go back to my investors in the last company and say, "Hey guys, I got an idea." And so we were able to raise a pretty big seed round in 2014. It's like 2.75, and that took us a couple years, right? It gave us the time to get product right, and not rush the let's add salespeople, right? Yep. And then find out we don't have the product right.
Yep, or the funnel, or the metrics, or the SDR to account executive ratios, or anything like that, right?
Yep, that's right.
Very good. So over the past, 2 years since you've been post-revenue, what have you been able to grow your customer base to? How many customers today?
So we have about 50 enterprise customers, which I think of it at that kind of scale we just talked about. And we're growing revenue 3.5x a year. So we're really on kind of a good role. We just raised another round at Series A, fourth quarter of last year, building out the management team, deepening the sales team, and so on. So we're adding, if you will, the capacity to grow at a faster rate now.
That's great. Now, I mean, if I take 50 enterprise folks at the level you just told me, 125,000 ACV, that would put you at about 520 grand a month right now in revenue. Is that about accurate?
In the neighborhood,
In the neighborhood. Yeah. And if I just want to give you credit where credit's due. If you're 3xing year over year, that means just a year ago you were doing about 175 grand a month.
Yeah. No, we're. It's been a steep curve. In fact, we had huge growth before I raised the Series A. And so it was on like shoestring. We had 50% of our revenue was coming from our install base. And we were struggling, to be honest, as you might say, to eat what we kill, right?
Yep.
To deliver what we took down. And it was a hard stretch. We even got to a point where for every buck we were spending in sales and marketing, we were generating almost 5 in revenue. And
when was that? What year?
Last year, just before I raised, right? So for most of 2017, that was a ratio. And that was because our customers were expanding really rapidly, right? The land and expand play was working where the expansion would happen within the first quarter, right? And then it would happen.
Around what pricing? Sorry to cut you off. Around what pricing axes? Number of seats, additional features. What'd you upsell?
Seats, right? Okay. And so in our case, we're going to start with this part of the business unit and get everybody aligned. And then we're going to add this part of the business unit and the next part of the business unit. So it's really users, seats, right, to it. So that expansion was driving a ton of our growth and a lot of our efficiency, right? And really helped us figure out 2 things were important, right? Like what do people buy in the first instance? And then how do they get happy and happier over time, right? We had a really thin team to go make that happen. And so when we raised money and could add to the team, it was like, whew, we can kind of breathe now for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then it was all over again, right?
Yep. Well, $1. I mean, so basically what I heard you say is your dollar-based CAC was basically 20 cents. You spend 20 cents to get $1 of new ARR for all last year. Now, these channels, when they're highly profitable, the question is diminishing returns over time. Can you keep spending money in the channel? So have you been able to hold that ratio?
We're actually not trying to hold quite that aggressive a ratio, right?
Yep.
So we really want to spend $1 and earn 2.
Yep.
Right.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah, that's still, I think, an aggressive thing. So the channel, the opportunity for Workboard, right, is if you think about who needs to be aligned on the strategic priorities of a company and executing against them. Well, everybody who works here, right? If you're not contributing to the strategic priorities, get off payroll.
Yeah.
Right.
Should be the whole team.
And for us, it's the whole business unit. It's the whole company, right?
Yep.
And so the total addressable market for us is enormous.
Yep.
Right. And so yes, there is sort of infinite opportunity. Like where you think about a sales force, it can monetize and solve problems for users in sales, in marketing, and in services.
Yep.
But not for dev and not for finance and not for legal and not for service, right? For tech sup. In our case, it's a big footprint. So deepening our existing customer base, going farther and wider and deeper into those large enterprises, and acquiring new customers is a long run for us, right?
Deidre, you told me you're driving expansion in the first couple months. Extrapolate over the first year. If your first year ACV is 125, what's your typical first year expansion?
So the first year, the average ACV is sort of where we end up at the end of that first year, right? So our first bite might be here's a typical one from this quarter, 50K first deal in July, 200K ad in September.
Okay, got it. So that would be 400% kind of expansion in the account. I imagine you have net revenue retention then way over 100%.
Yep, I sure do.
Are you maybe over 250 or 300%?
It probably comes out somewhere like 140, right? And probably comes out around 140. Some of our large enterprise customers lay off as many people as they
got it. Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. The other layer to that net revenue retention onion is what gross revenue churn is under the expansion. Yeah. So what is that revenue churn typically annually? So
we don't have logo churn. We do have gross revenue churn, and that comes from 2 places. Literally, layoffs are a real thing, right? Yeah. For companies like IBM, for example, which is a customer, and the GM loses his job.
Yeah.
right? And those are the two biggies. And so part of our expansion motion, part of our learning in 2016 really was the exposure to you lose the leader, the exposure to that is high. And so we're going to drive a path where we expand within the first quarter.
Multiple leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Within Q1, you've got leader 2, and in Q2, you've got leader 3, right? And so on.
Well, it's tricky for your salesperson because they're thinking, I don't want leader 1 that I closed to feel like I'm going around them. But really, it's your only insurance policy is to have a leader 2 and a leader 3 as an internal champion.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's this peak of euphoria for leader 1 is on day 21.
Why?
Right? We have a really, really cool onboarding approach. Really cool. Like that leader got value beyond their expectation on day 21.
Deidre, you're teasing me. What is it? What's the magic there?
So they buy Workboard because they want higher alignment on the strategic priorities. And they want faster results. And our onboarding process isn't to say, here's the tool. It's actually facilitating the alignment itself, the substantive alignment, and capturing that in the tool. Mm-hmm. And so that's a whole skill and process and way of thinking that companies don't have a lot of skill at. They're not very good at it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we bring in a team of coaches that in a week or 2 coach teams to real alignment on real results, not tasks and activities, right? And to-do lists, but on outcomes.
Will they pay for that as an onboarding fee?
They will absolutely pay for that on an onboarding fee, right? So we have that as a whole other revenue stream. Some will pay for it as an annualized managed service.
That's great. So, I mean, right? this means that you should then, I don't know what your CAC is, but I imagine that professional service upfront setup fee probably recovers most of your CAC, right?
It does. And it drives that attach rate to leader number 2, number 3, and number 4. Because when you get the first leader to euphoria on day 21, he wants to tell all his peers how smart he is and how he got that smart. And he becomes an advocate like crazy, right? And so you're not going around him.
Yep.
You're helping him actually demonstrate how smart he's been in leading his organization forward.
So what are you spending to land that $50,000 kind of first leader?
Mm-hmm. Our sales cycle right now, it's a huge amount of inbound, right? Huge inbound. Sales cycle is about 60 days, super short, right? So the cost to acquire through our network, we have probably 25% of our opportunities are word of mouth, right? And about 45% of our revenue is install base. So the cost to acquire a customer first is moving all over the place right now as I add sales and marketing team to the mix. So it's wildly variable, but it's pretty lean and efficient. Sort of back to right now I'm still at $1 to about $2.50, $1 to $2.50 in revenue.
Yep.
And I'm trying to bring that down. I'm trying to spend more on sales and marketing.
That means if you're going to land a $50,000 ACV, divide that by $2.50. So you're spending, call it $18, $19, right? Or sorry, $18,000 or $19,000 to get a $50,000 ACV account.
And
something like that. Fully weighted.
Yep. Heads, everything.
Yeah. And you probably, even out, you could usually your payback period, you would then take that 17 or 18 grand divided into first year ACV, but you actually probably get paid back pretty instantly if they're paying that onboarding fee up front.
That's right. Because my ACV number didn't include my services number.
Exactly.
And they're paying the service upfront and the annual software upfront as well.
That's great. What's the team size today?
We're about 55 people.
And where's everyone based?
Most of the sales and marketing and customer success team, CTO and support are in Redwood City. Field sales guys across the US. We have dev and some customer success in India. We have large customers in India as well.
Yeah, very cool. Talk to me about, so last time you raised, I think you said it was Q4 last year. You're now hitting this growth trajectory. I mean, the usual pattern you see is kind of a raise every year as you scale through the 3x, 2x, 2x, 2x. So, I mean, are you any plans to raise right now or in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so we raised in October. I'm a pretty conservative, not first timer, don't spend it because you have it, spend it because it's smart person. So we probably won't raise or even start the process until next April or May.
Oh, very good.
And there are a bunch of things I want to have in place and perfected and kind of really teed up as we go into that. And of course, I want to push it out as long as I rationally can.
Yep. If a company like a McKinsey comes to you someone that, is hired to drive performance, right? And they say, listen, you're doing 500 grand. Let's say you're doing 8 million, 9 million, 10 million bucks a year right now. Let's say they offer you 10x at 100 million. Do you sell the company today or no?
Not today.
Not even for 10x?
So it's not the multiple really, right? Because it's a multiple of what? You sort of look at where you are, and you look at where you are in revenue now. Look at what you believe to be the potential revenue in 1 year, in 4 years, right? And it's somewhere between the 1 and the 4 year horizon. Don't look beyond that. Don't fool yourself, right? Yep. But in that 1 or 4 year horizon, you think, well, where do I think revenue is going to be then? What if the world implodes, where do I think it will be, right? And then what's that 10x multiple look like?
Yep. Where do you think you'll be in a year?
Good question. Don't know the answer. Don't know. It's so much about does the sales force I've just seeded, do they hit it out of the park? Does it take them 1 quarter to do that? Does it take them 2? There's so much variability, which is why I'm going to figure that out and then do the raise, right?
Do you have the economics yet, the pro forma for a new salesperson? Is it a 6-month ramp, 3-month ramp? What's it take them to get to quota?
Right now we're looking at 4 months. My VP of sales crushed in Q1. He carried a bag, and I'm going to understand how to do this. I'm going to be the best sales guy, right? So I can hire and coach the best sales guy. He's an experienced guy too, right? He had his first quarter, he nailed it, right? Yeah. But we're still working on, if you can do that with 1 guy, doesn't mean you can do it with 4 or 8.
Yep. And is your ratio in terms of quota, target relative to what your base comp is it, the typical kind of 5-6x? So your quota is probably 1-2 million in new bookings per year?
That's right. Yeah. We try and keep a ratio of what that person costs is what they generate in revenue and so on, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully a multiple of what they cost is what they generate.
Totally. Yeah.
Very good, Deidre. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
I'm going to go with the tried and true, The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
That's a good one. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Satya Nadella.
No, Microsoft, good one. Number 3, is there a favorite online tool you have for growing your business?
Workboard, of course.
And after your own?
Growing my business. Good question. God, there's so many tools. I don't have a number 2. My plan, my goals, my targets, and what I need to do to get there in Workboard, that's the juice for me.
Okay. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
I try to clear 6.
Okay. And what's your situation? Married, single, got kiddos running around?
I'm married and I have a daughter.
Young, out of the house?
She is director of business ops at an e-commerce startup in New York.
Oh, very cool. That's great. And Deidre, do you mind me asking about how old you are?
I'm in my 50s.
Very cool. Last question. Take us back to your 20-year-old self. What do you wish that she knew?
So interestingly, in my 50s, I think that the question can go both ways, right? So I was in my first startup when I was 24. I made my first business pitch to another company, and they ended up writing us a $10 million check. This was way pre-startup.
To buy you or to invest?
To buy rights to a particular channel in the market so we would drive the marketing. They would take mass distribution. We'd take specialty. And so my first startup experience was wild and crazy and super early in my life. And I was absolutely fearless, right? I didn't even think of things. There was no boundary, right? Whatever, of course we can do it. Yeah, we can climb it. Yeah, for sure we can jump that. And I almost think the note goes the other way, right? In your 40s, you want to tell your 20-year-old self stuff. In your 50s, you need to go back and say, what does my 20-something self need to tell me today, right? And what the 20-something calls me up and says is, go fearless, man, go fearless.
You have more to protect now, right?
You do.
Yeah,
you do,
I feel you. I mean, I can't tell you that I know what that is like, but I could kind of put myself in your shoes and understand exactly why you think that. So be fearless, guys. Be fearless. There you have it from Deidre. Ran a big turnaround. Company that raised about $60 million. A couple years in, nothing. Pre-revenue, nada. She came in, turned it around, basically got everyone's investors' money back, which was great. Then was at IBM for a bit. Saw a big need for alignment inside of companies. Left IBM in 2014. Launched Workboard. Today, serving over 50 enterprise clients that pay on average 125 grand in first year ACV, doing about 500 grand, 600 grand per month right now in revenue. That's up 3x year over year. Net revenue retention, incredible economics here, 140%. Expansion is really through the roof as they go from leader 1 to leader 2. She's willing to spend up to $1 to acquire $2.50 in new revenue. They've got a team of 55 folks based between California, India, and other remote locations. Deidre, thanks for taking us to the top.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thanks.